pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move the MS4 right up front. Okay, is that all right, John? Ned, I'm going to move the MS4 up front.
Okay.
Okay. We have public comment, but we're going to move the MS4 up front at the beginning of the meeting here. So if you guys got any questions, we're going to have a presentation by our engineer. So the floor is yours, Ned.
Floor is mine. I don't know if you want me to start, for those of you that have questions, just on the reason why, the background on the fee, and then you can ask questions, or ask questions first and I can answer them.
Give us background first.
Right. So back in 2003, the federal government started, through the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, who has jurisdiction, so to speak, for the federal requirements, started to implement what's called the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer Regulations. So when they rolled them out initially, it was really dialed to mapping of all your stormwater facilities. So these are not sanitary sewers that are regulated by other regulations. These aren't water lines. These are stormwater conveyance facilities. And so the original permit came out. Part of the tasks were mapping of the system and then sampling of the outfalls. So what I mean by sampling outfalls, anywhere a stormwater discharged, if after a precipitation event occurred, within 3 days after that, if it still had a continuous flow, it had to be investigated. It also had to be sampled. The sampling included looking for fats, oils, grease, surfactants, and other compounds that you would not normally find in stormwater. The result of that was you would have to, once they were found, you would have to investigate the source. In some cases, the sources were gray water, for example, or someone may have tied in something from their home many, many years ago and it was making it into waters of the Commonwealth. Or it could have been someone that was dumping either antifreeze, oils, or things like that, making it into the storm source. So what they, in 2003, they really started preparing everyone for what was coming down the road, but nobody knew what was coming down the road. They extended that permit to go from 2003 to 2013. And at that point, they issued general permits. So what the township has is a permit that's regulating all these discharges. So that includes roadway ditches, that includes the stormwater ponds, that includes all the stormwater piping throughout the system. The goal is to minimize pollution to surface waters, hence the testing that went on. In addition to that, there were 6 MCMs that were put into place. These are called minimum control measures. They included public education and outreach. They included adoption of stormwater management regulations for new construction. They required post-construction monitoring if activities are going on, and this kind of followed parallel with erosion and sedimentation control devices. But if you have new construction, you get mud on the roads, that has to be addressed. If someone constructs a new development, they have to manage the water that comes from it. If you construct a house or a driveway of a certain size, you have to install either an underground detention facility like a rock sump, or you have to put a rain garden or some other. So they're prescriptive on the elements that you install, with the goal being to reduce source water quantity, i.e. flooding, but more importantly, the goal is to improve water quality that's flowing in, effectively into the Ohio. As the regulations progressed and as more permits were required to be obtained, they started putting additional requirements on. Now, all of this work that is done has to be recorded and indexed and kept by the township. And the Department of Environmental Protection will schedule random audits of your documentation. So they want to see that you're meeting these MCMs. They want to see that you're doing public education. For example, Beaver County usually puts out one article in the newspaper every year for all communities, and it saves on the advertising costs. And going along with that was also the cleaning out of catch basins and maintenance of them, cleaning out of storm sewers and maintenance of them. Keeping in mind, historically, if you would clean out a catch basin, you'd throw it back in the dump truck, you would take it and you would dump it somewhere. Well, at this point, that can't happen. That has to go to a landfill. It's the same. It actually, as it grew and as the regulations started to extend their tethers out, it went to public works. When they wash their trucks, they have to wash their trucks inside. So it just can't run down the ditch, or a ditch, for example. Any absorbents that are used, like if you have an oil leak or something like that in your garage when you're cleaning it, you have to clean that material up, you have to put it in a container, and if you buy 30 pounds, you should be disposing of 30 pounds. You just can't take it to your dumpster and throw it in, or you just can't take it to the edge of the road and get rid of it. So, swimming pools, many people don't know. You cannot just pump your pool out and run it down the side of the road. It has chlorine in it. It has to be dechlorinated. You should be dumping it on your property to allow it to absorb into the ground and allow the chlorine to volatilize and come off. The police don't drive around and enforce that, but that is part of these regulations, believe it or not. Washing your car, you should be washing it in your front yard according to the regulations, because soaps cannot go down the edge of the ditch. Even with a change in soaps, when they got away from phosphates and other nutrients that cause algae blooms and things of that nature and harm aquatic life, these are things that were slowly coming into place. Now the bigger ones are the ones that most communities have elected to follow. Some of the small things are not policing at this point, but by federal law, really if someone was washing a car in a driveway and the soap was running down the edge, they could be cited for that. And then all your activities that you do, all your follow-up, all the education materials you put together, again, all get placed in all these binders. So when the department comes out, they'll go through them and make sure that you've documented if you had a violation, what that violation was, and how you address that violation. And this goes on to annually the board. They get trained on the new regulations that have come out and what their requirements are. Public Works, they have a training session with them as well as with the fire department, just to talk about disposal of material. Like for example, before if there was an accident, it wasn't uncommon if they threw material down to absorb the oils and things that came from the accident, they would shovel them up and put them in the car if the car was totaled. Well, you can't do that anymore. You have to clean it up, but you have to document where everything goes. So there's a large administrative burden that goes along with it. But there's also the burden that comes to Public Works. So the Township Public Works Department is the workforce behind cleaning of the catch basins, repair of the storm sewers, repair of any stormwater ponds that the township owns. Then in 2018, additional requirements came out. And again, I just keep in mind, these are all federal laws. So failure to comply with these federal laws has two ramifications. One is, if you're not complying, they'll fine the township. And there have been, I haven't seen any court cases or anything like that because it's not my bailiwick, but there have been, at the annual conferences, they talk about 7-figure fines issued to communities that fail to comply with the MS4 requirements. So we're talking in millions for just ignoring them. Additionally, if you fail to do these, as you've seen the Attorney General just did with Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority for failure to comply with DEP orders, they would have to them criminally. So these are the consequences if you don't follow the law. Now how widespread they go, it's uncertain. I'm sorry. And that just broke my whole train of thought. But there's an obligation to satisfy these. So in the communities that we work in, including Brighton, I can say that they've all been following what has been required in terms of these federal requirements. And it's very prescriptive and it's very descriptive on what you should do. Like I said, as far as Public Works, they have to track the materials they bring in, they have to watch how they wash their trucks, even as far as the work that was done down at the waste disposal area. One time we would gather all that material and then we would grind it. Well, we couldn't just do that because the humus, the material that was coming off of that material as it broke down was running down through the lot and running in different areas. So The township did receive a grant for that, and part of that was to regrade that area. All that wet water now runs into dedicated catch basins, and it goes into a facility called a rain garden. That rain garden has plantings that will that can handle this material, and also has a filtration bed on it too. So any fine materials or particulate materials, they'll get picked up and disposed of. That's a burden again that's placed on the township. That was the facility, but they had to do it. In 2018, they took things a step further in looking at any streams that were impaired. So you have 2 Mile Run, you have Brady's Run. Each of those, I believe, are impaired for sediment, and one of them, I believe, has a nutrient, a phosphorus and a nitrogen limit. So there's a couple ways to address these BRPs, and it's called pollution reduction plans. But these aren't plans; these are constructed facilities that you have to build. So in the case of 2 Mile Run, to reduce the sediment load there, the township is going to need to construct basically a large stormwater basin to capture any sediment that goes down there. And on occasion, they'll have to remove that material and determine a way to dispose of it. And there's another that leads towards Brady's Run, that another facility will it's either an existing facility that you can convert, which is the most economical, or you have to just construct a facility. There's also some other programs that they do where you go back and you take natural waterways and you try to restore them back to their original condition. The risk with those facilities now is once you build them, you'll get credit for like pollution reduction, for example. But if you get a major rainstorm that comes and it washes everything away, because there's one thing to make it look like it was natural, there's another thing whether it will withstand these rainfalls that we get nowadays. Chances are we could do a project for $200,000, and after a big rain event, it'll all be down the Ohio River. So the direction the township has gone is to look at constructing facilities to settle this material out. We can dispose of it, which will not be subject to rainfall or continual expensive maintenance. So during this whole course, this whole period, the township was incurring all these costs. That was all coming out of the general fund. It was just being paid by taxes. There was no fund for it. So I believe it was last year or the year before, don't quote me on it, second-class townships, which Brighton is, the state passed legislation that allowed the assessment of a fee. And currently there's a bill, 2 bills in front of the House and the Senate to allow first-class townships and boroughs to do the same thing. Now the codes don't exclude it, but when it's spelled out more directly by regulation, that you can charge it. The purpose of the fee is that no one is exempt from it. So if you're a tax exempt entity, you're not. If you're a county agency, you're not exempt. Everyone pays their fee. In the case of Brighton, I think roughly 80% of your parcels are taxable, 20% aren't. So that would mean 80% of the people would be shouldering the load for 20% that were exempt. And many of the exempt facilities are very large facilities. For example, schools and other areas. These areas contribute a large amount of stormwater into the system. So by volume or by their own construction, it would only be fair that someone that has something of that size would pay a higher cost for it and pay a fee versus just a homeowner or just a taxable business owner paying those fees. Hence, that's why it's a fee and not a tax. This isn't new. The Borough of Coriopolis just passed one. As a matter of fact, it's where our office is. We just paid our bill for it. And Mount Lebanon, for example, they created an authority before the statutes were passed for I believe they're a borough. And some communities have gone and used their authorities. So if they had a sanitary authority, they renamed it to Joint Water and Sewer Authority or Stormwater and Sewer Authority, but they charge that through their rates. So again, it's a fee, but it went through the rates. So you call it a fee, you can call it the rates, but it's the same approach as far as collections. The township has the workforce. You know, if the sanitary authority would have taken it over, they're not staffed, nor do they have the equipment to do it, so they had to have made an arrangement with the township. But in the end, the fee would have been the same. It would have just been on top of your sewer bill or broken out. Would have been one way to do it. But what we've seen more commonly is what you're seeing now is you're seeing a separate discrete fee that is for compliance with the MS4 regulations, compliance with all the work that needs to be done to stay in compliance with these regulations and build the facilities that need to be done. Because for years, storm sewers were, as long as they worked, there wasn't much attention given to them. And I think, and obviously the federal government saw that, you know, they monitor sanitary discharges, they monitor any type of discharge. If you want to discharge anything into the river, you have to get what's called an NPDES permit. National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System is what the acronym stands for. However, you know, the times of just sticking a pipe out the river and letting it drain are over. If you don't have a permit, you can't put it in. You can't discharge it. And frankly, that goes for a lot of streams anymore too. And these new housing developments and things of that nature, they have to get a permit, similar type of permit for their facilities that they construct. So it's becoming a highly regulated aspect of infrastructure, where in the past it wasn't. It was more common when it was broke, it got fixed. You know, if the road sunk or if a catch basin fell apart, you just took care of it. The contents weren't regulated. There was no stipulations by DEP to regulate those. Now, obviously, if you saw someone dumping gasoline or antifreeze and someone caught them, or if the police caught them, they got a picture, they could probably find something to cite them under. Now there are means to cite them under, and people have been cited. You know, even as much as just discharging concrete, you just can't go off the side of the road and just unload your concrete mixture anymore, because it contains accelerants, contains a variety of different chemicals, and it's, you know, very alkaline. It just can't be done. That could lead to a fish kill. So much of it is based, as I said, on water quality. So these are steps they're taking to improve and enhance the water quality within the surface water systems. Again, it has no connection to wastewater or, you know, sewage that comes from your home or anything like that. This is stormwater. So it's anything that runs off the streets, comes off your gutters, runs off your property. So eventually that all gets to a common point. It's one of these threads of these streams that make it up to the township will eventually discharge to the Ohio River. So with all the pollution that happened over the years and, you know, the ongoing urbanization throughout, you know, in this area, these rules were promulgated by the Clean Stream Law. So they just started, you know, incrementally rolling out the requirements. So whenever we file for a new permit, typically there's 5 or 6 more conditions that are on top of that permit. And those 5 or 6 more conditions put that much more of an administrative as well as a fiscal load on the township. There's work that needs to be done here. There's work that needs to be done by consultants. There's work that has to go out when the sampling's done to the lab. And then there's a follow-up work by the township workforces as far as taking care of these facilities, as well as inspecting these facilities. So that's a kind of a high level, and I probably jumped away from a lot of the detail that I certainly can get into if you want to, or depending on your questions, I can answer those. But, you know, the purpose with the fee was it was getting to be an annual load that was not going away on your general fund, which pays for everything, your police services, your municipal employees, public works, and things of that nature, fire department, and everything else. It just could not be supported just with taxes, unless you would do a tax increase. And as I said, the tax increase, for example, anything that was considered tax exempt, they wouldn't have had to pay. So, you know, in the case, you know, Beaver Area School District got a bill. All the facilities down across, you know, the medical center, you know, all of those facilities that got a charge for their proportionate share based on the size of their facility, based on the amount of impervious area they have, they got a fee. Now, if you live in a development that has a stormwater pond and it's new, a portion of your water is already being managed. So there was a credit given to those residences that had a stormwater facility that they maintained through their homeowner association. Those facilities aren't owned by the township, they're owned by the group, the homeowner association, or whatever association they have in place. They take care of those ponds. However, the township has to inspect those annually, and then issue a report to them and make sure they follow up on the work that needs to be completed. If the work doesn't get completed, then the township has to take some type of enforcement action against them. Again, all of which it's costly to go out to inspect them. It's costly if they're non-compliant to enforce what's going on. So you can see how the compliance with the MS4 regulations and with the physical improvements that they want to see, and the method of disposal for what you find in these storm sewer systems and in the catch basins and things of that nature, all have an added cost, and a cost that wasn't here in 2003. And really, for the most part, probably wasn't here until the early teens, 2013, 2014, when they really started to add more regulations to these requirements. So, in effect, back in the 60s, wastewater just went, they got a pipe that went straight to the river. In the late 60s, they started putting in primary treatment, which just was clarifiers. It took out the big chunks of material and let the rest go. By the 70s, you had secondary treatment and other discharge requirements with wastewater. As the years have gone down, what you be discharged has gotten tighter and smaller, and even with wastewater, depending on regulations, are going to be for nutrient reduction. What I mean by that is like phosphorus and nitrogen, because phosphorus and nitrogen, if you've read anywhere or seen anywhere, there's algae blooms that are starting to work their way up the Ohio. And those algae blooms are being fed by all these nutrients that are being discharged from all these upstream areas. And some of it, if you have, in the Susquehanna River Basin, they've been doing this for many, many years because of all the I wouldn't call it agricultural, but there's a lot of cattle and things that are raised there. They get a lot of runoff and that. And they're actually trading credits. They're given, for a given size of your property, you're only allowed so much phosphorus and so much nitrogen to come off, and you have to put a plant on the tree for it. Or if your neighbor has 200 pounds that he's allowed and you're allowed 100, and he's only using 50, they trade credits or sell credits to each other. So that regulation that was in the central part of the state, because they saw the damage that was done by these nutrients and by the sediment loading, has now just made its way throughout the state. But this, again, this is a federal regulation, so it's not just Pennsylvania, it's not just Pennsylvania DEP, it's throughout the United States. Now, in some more rural areas that aren't urbanized, Brighton is considered an urbanized area based on the density and the number of houses here. They can apply for a waiver. Some have been able to get a waiver, but they will only get waivers for so long, and they will be into the program. So that was 25 minutes of I don't know what, but the law as we know it today until we file for our next permit.
Go ahead, Matt. Question.
How much do you think that this is going to cost?
Approximately $250,000 a year.
All right, and that's what you're collecting now.
I could give you the exact number, but I believe that's what the budget is based on. That's correct, yes.
I think the face amount of the billing is close to $259,000, the base rate billing.
Okay.
Somewhere right now.
Now, if we show an effort and we're just not able to meet these requirements, can we ask for extensions?
No.
So basically meet it or you're fined,
Yes.
which therefore would go to court, you can fight it, possibly win.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
What I'm saying is like, if we attempt, because right now that's huge on a lot of different people. Like, it's huge on the churches, it's huge on the schools, it's huge on the county. All they're gonna raise their taxes in order to recoup their money. They're gonna raise their millage. I mean, that's the way it does. You know, you put a charge on them, they put a charge back on us. They're gonna get their money back. So I was just hoping that maybe we could lower it for next year and then cap it. Because right now we don't have a cap, is that correct?
No, it's gonna go permit by permit to see how it goes. We don't even know what the next 5-year cycle's.
See, that's scary as a resident.
Well, I'm a resident too.
Yeah, is that does not
But
scare
churches
you?
aren't gonna raise anything because they just take in for collection for their people. The school district raises taxes every year. Every year.
Well, you're only allowed 2 more.
Right.
Brighton Township.
That's it. Right.
Then you gotta take it to court.
The county isn't gonna raise taxes just because of Brighton Township. Now, collectively, I'm not sure what the other municipalities are gonna do with theirs. We don't know. We don't know what the permit says. You know, mainly our concern is what the permit says for Brighton Township, and that's what we have to tackle, is that there.
Well, I feel we need to put a cap on it.
You can't put a cap on it because if DEP comes through with something else, you're just not gonna know. And you can't do that.
Well,
But it
temporary
is,
cap?
but it's reviewed, don't forget now, it's reviewed, that if we find out that we're not gonna need this money, then that rate could be lowered. But also on the other hand, if we find out that it gets so stringent, it could go upwards too.
All right, now, does this money, is it in the minutes or whatever that this can only be used for MS4?
It's in a separate account. We created a separate account at a public meeting just to put this in.
Okay, that's all it can be used for,
That's all
stated on record.
On the adopting ordinance, it was
Okay.
specific, it had to be segregated
But
for specific purposes.
I understand you don't want to put a cap on it because you don't know in the future, but, I mean, temporary caps will protect us until it comes back up. How many years do you have left before you want to retire from this position?
From this position?
Yes.
Oh, I don't worry about that. If you think I get paid a lot to do this.
No, I'm not saying that.
But my
Right
regular
now-
job, I'm retiring at the end of the year, so.
No, I mean, like, not all of you are going to be sitting in those chairs.
Well, it's true. Yeah.
So the next people in, hopefully, we elect good people. There's a chance that we don't, and there's a chance that fee could be even higher and hurt us even more. That's why I want the cap.
The cap means nothing because the people coming after us could always rescind it, so that means nothing. The thing is, go ahead, Brian,
Well, as you were saying, it'll be reviewed each year and set as part of the budget. The fee will be adopted or reenacted annually or changed. So it'll be part of the budget review process, the fee will be.
Yeah, but
Just like
as a
the-
resident, I don't feel protected right now.
Well, I mean, it's like all the other rates we set each year, the water, the sewer, the real estate taxes. I mean, all those fees are reviewed and set annually or periodically. So, I mean, obviously, the goal is not to just build a big war chest of money that's sitting there. I mean, the fee was adopted for specific projects or programs to meet our pollution reduction requirements.
And that was the cheapest way that we could have done it, is what you're saying.
Yes.
And
Now-
those, when you said about achieving the goals, and the way the act was set up, and the engineer probably can answer this better. So we're not gonna actually go out and retest water in 2 Mile Run Creek or Brady's Run and say we've made progress. They give specific credits. So if you build a certain type of facility, they say that's equivalent to removing so many pounds of sediment, based on what you're building. So that's how you demonstrate you're achieving your goal. It's based on what you're building. So we have specific pollution reduction requirements set forth in the act that we have to meet. We've adopted a plan on how we intend to meet those obligations. So if we build the infrastructure that we said we would build to achieve the goal, then we should meet it. The only way I would see we're not going to meet it is if we don't build those items we say we intend to build to get the reduction in the sediment loads or other pollutants. So we're not going to actually be testing water. They make assumptions in the act that certain types of actions result in certain types of achievements.
So once these facilities are built, it should go down to just basically maintaining, correct? And
Well,
will that cause the fee? Well, will that cause the overall cost, which in turn would be the fee? Would that possibly in the future cause that to reduce?
The fee, we base the fee on what we need to achieve in this 5-year permit cycle, what we believe we need. And as the engineer said, that permit will have a renewal. And we don't know what the next legislative requirement will be. So we're in our 3rd permit cycle. Each cycle has increased the level of compliance. They keep upping the ante on what needs to be done to achieve their goals, which is the Clean Water Act goals. So until we know what that is, it's hard to say, but you're right. Once you build a facility, the cost is going to reduce on an annual maintenance.
Now, another thing, I live on a state road. A couple of you know where I live, but on Barkley Hill. Same thing with Tusca and Dutch. Those are state-maintained drainage systems. Now, personally, where I'm at, I could use a drain across to keep my driveway from washing, but I don't have one. But everything that comes in front of my house just washes into my yard and then goes from there. When there is drains, do the state what's the state's part to play in this? Being that obviously you can't do anything about the state side of their drainage. I mean, when it comes to maintaining and things of that nature, what is their part to play in this?
Ned, you may know better than I do. They're required to have, they have their own permit, the state highway system or PennDOT. They're subject to the MS4 program. I can't answer to what they're doing.
Because I mean, you can kind of see where my thought process might be or is. I understand I might be a resident of the township, but I live on a state-maintained road where I could ask you all day long to put in a storm drain in front of my house to alleviate the problem with bad storms washing my driveway. But you're going to tell me to go contact the state because it's their responsibility.
Right.
So, and plus Barkley Hill, anything from either side of Barkley Hill doesn't go to any of those streams or creeks that you're referring to. Mine would actually go down to Pine Grove. And across the street ends up coming down, and the outfall from it is Mansell's abandoned brick plant down there along the river.
That's
It's
4
4
Mile Run.
Okay.
So we all our properties are within some drainage basin. And although the infrastructure we're building under our pollution reduction plan is specific to the Brady's Run and 2 Mile Run drainage districts, 4 Mile Run and 6 Mile Run, and I think Hamilton Run, and we're part of the Beaver River drainage basin and the Ohio River drainage basin. They're all impacted at some level of pollution.
I understand, but
So we all drain to an impacted waterway. I live in Barkley Hill too, as you
I
know,
know.
so I'm draining to the same drainage basin. So, I mean, it is maintenance of our own stormwater systems, and there's certain things we have to do with it under the MS4 program, as far as the mapping, the testing, inspections, and those type of things. PennDOT's supposed to do their own program. I can't say what they're doing or if they're even complying with it, but I know what you're saying.
I mean, because to me, it's, I'm contributing, and it is what it is, but, I mean, if I'm contributing and the water that might come from my property or off the road in front of my property isn't being impacted or filtered or anything by any of the projects that you've got going right now or you've put forth. So it's, you can see where I'm coming from with this.
Well, the projects will move as necessary.
Okay.
I think our permit entails the whole township.
It is.
And the whole watershed.
And it's also maintenance of your facilities, that's inlets and pipes and things of that nature. So even though you might live on a state road and maybe, be fortunate that there's only 2 watersheds that are considered impaired at this time. Next permit cycle, it may be all of them.
Yeah.
To be very candid with you. The second thing, if it were all 6 of them, that fee would probably be triple or quadruple.
Yeah.
So it's actually, Brighton was, for being located how you're located, with all these various drainage basins going down, we would have to catch each one of those.
Yeah.
So we really just drove the cost much higher. So it's unfortunate that this has to be done, but fortunately we only have 2 impaired waterways. But again, that could change, that could change with the next cycle if they tighten up what the discharge limits are, or what they consider impaired, frankly. And that's an operative word, but what they consider impaired has to be addressed. But, we couldn't, it would have been extremely difficult to try to, it was hard enough to appropriate this based on impervious area. If you would have tried to incorporate, well, how much pipe is here in this neighborhood and how much pipe is here, and then charge more in one neighborhood because they had more pipe and less because they had less pipe, it would have got overly complicated. Plus everyone in the township benefits from all the facilities that are here, but they all create runoff just as well. And even the non-state roads do it as well. But Brian's correct, the state has their own permits and how they're dealing with the state, PennDOT with DADB, they don't get a pass, but how they're managing it, they don't work together with the township on that matter. They just kind of deal with it themselves.
And no matter what, Mark, the amount of money has to come from somewhere, whether it be a tax increase, which then you would have to pay anyway, or this fee. One or the other. And don't forget that 20% is tax exempt, and that number may grow. I mean, there's possibilities, we're not sure what's going to happen, here shortly when this lease is done on the building over here of what they're going to do. That could easily become tax exempt real quick. But we can see Brighton Township going to 30% tax exempt. Now who makes up the rest of that one? You see where we're going at. They can't get out of this though. That includes the group homes. You know as well as I do how many group homes we have out here. St. Barnabas, Hap Enterprise, McGuire Home, Allegheny Valley Schools. I mean, there's a ton of them out here. So you get all those that's included in that too. So everyone's in the game together. Yes.
Stu List, I'm sorry, I apologize. I have no idea who you are.
My name's Ned. I'm the township engineer.
Township engineer. So you don't,
Yes.
you referenced a office in Coriopolis. Are you like a subcontractor for the township?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand. I got a couple of questions. You mentioned about the recent developments. The one comes to mind is and don't be offended, the explosion over on Seaman Road, all those houses over there. Because they have current requirements that they meet that probably satisfy to some degree this set of requirements the state has imparted to you, they are not going to have to pay, if I'm correct, they will not pay $166 per household. Because they have the latest and greatest, they might be paying $100 or some other number. Is that right?
That's
but they
correct.
get a credit of some kind.
Yes.
Okay. So new homeowners new houses that aren't in a plan that may be built up in the hill somewhere, is what they are required, the dry wells, as we used to call them, that you now require, they also would get a credit.
That's correct.
Not received the credit, yeah.
Well, here's what, well, let me start first. Earlier you said, this isn't new, and I don't mean that derogatory. You said this thing has been going on for a while. I'm wondering, if it's not new, do you see any history on these fees from wherever the locations in Pennsylvania are? In other words, let's say Allegheny County or any other county. Has that fee tended to rise, fall, or remain stable? Do you have any real good feel for that? Or
Well,
because I understand,
no.
I had a discussion with Brian. He said, I think it's 5 years, they hand us a new demand list, so to speak,
That's correct.
and we don't have the choice to say, oh, we're not going to do that one.
That's correct.
We got to do the best we can on all of what they require. So, to me, it's likely that they're going to go up.
The fees, many of our clients and many municipalities, they had no mechanism unless they created an authority to charge a fee. So in those, I haven't seen them go down. I can tell you that, because the work required on the storm sewer systems, it's just been kind of like a sleeping, like I said before, if it was broke, you fixed it. There was no proactive work. You didn't go and camera lines, jet the lines out, look at them. It was made of corrugated metal pipe. If it was collapsing, get your line and fix it. That's part of what goes with it. You have to maintain your facilities. So those costs are coming to light. I can't really say I've seen them go up or down. What I've seen though was, just annually from a budgetary perspective, it kept going up. So in 2003, it was maybe $5,000 or $10,000. Get some maps done, sample some outfalls, and for a few years, it wasn't too bad. New regs came out, so now you had that much more. So I've seen that go up. So that's the difficult part to answer. It even goes to the gentleman's question, like, why don't you just cap it right now and then we'll wait? I mean, to put a cap on it is really somewhat of a misdirect, because if the state comes and says you have to do this, or you'll be subject to penalties, you have no choice. And even to challenge it in court, you can challenge it, you can go put the good fight up, but after a great deal of legal fees and everything else, and then they'll throw some penalties on it when you come back home and wrap them all together, you're that much further in the hole.
Yeah.
And with these PRPs, and I'll answer the rest of your questions, we have a 5-year window. They have to be done, and we'll be subject to penalties. So we're already in year 2 right now. So we have 3 more years to get this piece done. And they're going to come out, want to look at them, want to see them, want to see documentation on them. And again, what comes next, we don't know. Because as Brian said, there's 2 ways to do this. They have a prescribed method that X amount of volume will take X amount of sediment out. There's also a demonstrative procedure where you can say, well, let's try this. But then they make you sample all the time. And if you don't hit your goals, they're going to make you build something bigger and something better. And be very candid with you, if you had to go out and sample it every 2 weeks or every rainfall, send it out to a wet lab with all these analyses done, you're burning through so much money on something that's really speculative. Well, a lot of this is new ground for the treatment of surface water. Wastewater has been done for so many years. You know the metrics and you know how to do it. Surface water has so many variables with it that, they did allow it out, so to speak. That if you built a pond of a certain size and a certain drainage area, a certain number of pounds, that they will say you get credit for if it functions properly.
I get that. I just don't, and I'm not being negative here, I don't see how it, I'm thinking about the number of employees that currently are on the quote road department. You start adding this, and you get a couple of winters like we've had, when we have storms in the summer, now you got trees on the roads, and something's got to be let go, so we better get more people. No offense to anybody, I don't see it going down. I don't see it going down. That's just my not worthy opinion. Are there any state or federal monies available for, hey, we're doing all these hoops you want us to jump through?
Grants.
You can apply for grants? Strictly that are applied to this, meeting these goals that are fed to you?
No one has advertised any type of grants for this. I mean, there's grants out there for parks, there's grants out there for, economic development, and many other grants. For the MS4s, it's kind of like with the wastewater and the water systems. There's not many grants there unless you go to borrow money. For example, there's Penvest. But depending on your mean household income, determines your eligibility. I think you're all probably fully aware that the MHI in Brighton Township is relatively high. So that drives your eligibility for grants down. With that being said, I don't want you to think the township doesn't get grants. The township gets a great deal of grants for the parks, which are written by the manager, and you've been very fortunate in that manner. But usually with these, I have not seen a grant program yet, nor have any of my clients or any of my co-workers even discussed the availability of a grant for MS4 compliance.
Okay. Do I understand that one of your current requirements are to get the catch basins cleaned annually?
Yes.
There's a lot of catch basins.
Yes.
And that's a lot of man-hours
Yes.
and equipment.
And the material can't go to the dump.
That's right. That's right.
So that, that
Crossed
debris,
in, yeah.
that road grit, those leaves and things that end up in the bottom that you have to remove, we have to dispose of them in a dumpster.
I just walked up around the sports area up there. I saw 4 catch basins right up there around the football field. I said, these things are everywhere. You guys don't have a chance. I mean, the cost has got to go.
Oh, they're everywhere.
Here's the one thing that I'm confused about. If I have a house and I deal with all my stormwater and it goes into the ground, like I live on Brady's Ridge Road and there are maybe 15 houses on the side I live on, and then there's that huge farm, a couple hundred acres of farmland that is actually farmed, okay? So we're not putting water anywhere but into the ground. We're not sending it down over the hills, and we're not, I mean, it goes into the ground. Now, I granted it eventually goes somewhere, but I'm paying the same fee as someone who has a much larger house than mine. And I'm not trying to put the heat on them, but it seems somewhat inequitable that, you know, my house is I'm paying more than a guy and family who could afford to buy in whatever the Sebring Road expansion is called, Aspen Fields, or I don't know what it's called. So it seems a little uneven that I, who don't put any water into anybody's drain, I'm paying more than a guy who has a brand new drainage system. I mean, I don't get it. I'm absorbing all the water, and the farm right down the road from me, they absorb tons of rainwater because they keep the fields soft and, you know, usable. But yet, to my knowledge, there's no break for, not me, but I mean someone like me or a farm where the person who bought a brand new house, they seem to get some consideration for their new system. We're not putting it out there. I mean, I guess where I'm at with this is, if I'm not putting it into someone's catch basin system, what am I getting for my $166? Is what it
Well,
comes out.
I mean, there's two pieces to your statement. The first is, if you have a roof and you have a driveway,
Yep.
it can't be absorbed. So it's running down some slope somewhere. And as that water all accumulates, it forms a stream.
I agree.
So it is going somewhere. And those streams are part of this. It's just not pipes, it's the streams as well. So that, to answer one question, your water is going somewhere. If it was just forest and nothing else, then it's untouched, then, you know, some would run off naturally because it still runs in the streams, but not at an accelerated rate because you have the impervious area. The second piece is, with like the new development you were talking about that's being constructed, those residents, I believe there's 3 ponds there. At a minimum, I think there's 3. But they have to pay a monthly fee to their homeowner association. And part of that fee is to maintain those ponds in operation. So in the past, oftentimes stormwater ponds were built. They were built to satisfy the requirement that was in place, and, you know, whether kids went and drove dirt bikes down there, whether it worked, and whether the embankment grew over with trees and the ground water put holes through it, the water was spraying out. You know, if it wasn't a problem, nobody made it a problem. Now they have to be inspected every year. Now they have to be in compliance. If they fill up with sediment, they have to remove that sediment. If the outlet works don't work, if they rot out or whatever, they have to take care of it. If there's a slope in there, they need to work on it. So those facilities are all part of they have to pay for them. So the township, those that pay this fee, for example, well, they have to shoulder that full cost. That's their responsibility, not yours.
And the inspection of said and upkeep of those things is whose burden?
That's the township's, because the township has to document them. And then we put them on notice, and if they don't comply, they would have to enforce the regulation. That falls on the township, because they can't self-regulate.
So in the township, who does that?
The engineer's office does the annual inspections of the ponds. Each pond was designed to a certain standard. Then it would include a maintenance plan for post-construction. So we go out when they're moved from construction ponds to post-construction ponds, there's cleaning and changing of the infrastructure, the outlets, and then they have to be maintained. So we inspect them every year in accordance with the approved maintenance plan that was part of the stormwater management plan. And then we issue a report to the homeowners association or whoever the owner of the pond is.
Mhm.
If there's any maintenance obligations, they have to demonstrate they comply with those.
And the last question, I'm sorry. I asked this of Brian, and he told me there wasn't, but I guess you gentlemen all represent, you folks all represent, is there an appeal process? Like, I got a little joint down in Gypsy Glen, and it's on 8 acres of land, and it's the size of that desk, and I'm paying $166. And I'm thinking, I'm not getting this. I don't get this. And the guy with the big, beautiful house, he's paying $166. It doesn't add up to me.
Well, the fee's 66.
No, I get you, 66. I'm sorry.
The only appeal is to, if you want to appeal the measured area of your impervious surface. So for a non-residential property, they were billed based on a certain amount of square footage of impervious area. That's the appeal that's available. So for you, as a homeowner, or the property you mentioned on Gypsy Glen Road, it's just a single unit billing, so there's no appeal to that fee.
Well, I apologize, this impervious surface, I have a gravel driveway that sucks up more water than your catch basin.
By definition, in the ordinance that adopted the fee, they defined impervious to include any stone driveway, stone parking area, as well as asphalt or concrete. So it was considered in the square foot measurements.
Well, doesn't that take water? I mean, what's under the gravel?
It was anything that impeded stormwater infiltration.
I got a question. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to make so long.
Yes.
I got that some pipeline goes through my property. They can't access it from Chapel Road. They come up through and they put gravel road in where they can access that right away. Because I chose not to take that gravel out. Now I'm being charged.
We'd have to see on what was physically measured. If that was on your property, you probably were billed for it.
Well, I shouldn't be because it's technically the only way they get into their pipeline. It goes through my property. So I would like someone to look into that and readjust my bill for it.
Okay. Yeah, Matt.
Does my stormwater pit have to get annually inspected?
Those are inspected at least every 3 years under the adopting stormwater ordinance.
So somebody will come to my house and
Right.
inspect it?
Yeah, in those cases, they're hard to inspect, they're underground obviously, but to see that the overflow pipe's still there and that your gutters are not now disconnected and running somewhere else. That would probably be the duration of the inspection.
I'd just like to make one more comment, and this isn't any more questions, but when it comes to this situation, this whole MS4, there's a lot of people, like I myself, I glance through and read certain articles in the quarterly newsletter, but some things, like I said, where I'm at, being a state road, I didn't think anything of even reading this portion of it, because to me, I'm on a state road, I'm not township, I didn't even think, obviously. In the future, would it be possible for certain things like this that are larger, that may actually impact financially residents or whatever, to send out a separate mailer specifically for this? Because there's a lot of people that, whether it's right or wrong, that don't look at, they just throw the newsletter out. I don't, like I said, I actually glance through it for obvious reasons, but like I said, some people don't look at it at all. So there's a lot of people that don't get the information.
It's kind of funny you say that, only for a fact is that Brighton Township has won state awards at the PSAS conference on a state level for communicating as much as they can to their citizens. And yet here we have citizens who get something from the township and go right in the garbage and don't glance at it.
And I agree with you.
And unfortunately, you know, we spend yours and my tax dollars to send that to you. You should read everything that's in there, whether you feel it's important or not. That's a direct mailing to you. We're already doing a direct mailing. It's also on the website also too.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're trying to reach out as much as possible to you. And it wasn't just last year the MS4 was talked about in the newsletter. We've been talking about this for years in the newsletter, over and over again. And last year we were putting in there about how we're doing a study in December, how the fees were set. I mean, it was all in there, you know, trying to explain to everybody as much as we can. Like I said, it's just funny you said that because we've won state awards for communicating to our people as much as we can.
And just to add to that, I think it was last year or the year before, it was 3rd place over the state.
So on a state level, that's how much we're communicating to you already on a state level.
I trust me, I get it. You know, trying to communicate as the fire service department to the residents is a pain, but it was just a thought.
Thanks, I understand.
Yes.
Interesting.
I have a follow-up on that, and I came to you, Brian, a couple weeks ago and suggested this. Obviously, the mailers don't always work. You know, and in cases like in our house, if my husband gets the mail, that's gonna end up in the garbage. And I'm never gonna get, and I won't get to see it. And how many households does that just end up in the garbage with all the other junk mail? If you have something, a topic that is going to generate a fee, a tax that your residents are going to absorb, why would you not have a separate meeting, town hall meeting, whatever you want to call it, the same way you did with that crematorium stuff, and say, listen, here we are. If you want to come to this, this is going to explain this. This is going to explain your fee, how your fees are generated. It's going to explain where the monies are allotted. And you're not going to have all this uproar where you have Facebook pages and people starting other pages and misinformation. I mean, I have Facebook, like probably everybody in this room. But when it comes to Facebook handing out information, it's a snowball. It's a snowball effect. And then nobody has the right information. The people in this room came here to get the right information, but how many people don't have the right information?
Right.
It's like, why would you not take that as your next level? And understand, and I understand that by taking it to the next level and saying, here, we're gonna have this meeting about this MS4 stuff and why you're gonna be billed X amount of dollars, you're putting yourselves all in the firing line. And you're gonna have to answer the questions to everybody in this community.
Right.
But why not do that? Like, I'm in education. Education is not handing out a flyer hoping that somebody reads it. Education is bringing the information to the people in a space where they can answer and ask questions.
Right.
Like,
I think
why do you not pursue something like that with this moving forward?
It's something major, probably a good idea to do that. But also on the same note as you say that, don't be afraid to call in the office and just ask. Like if you've seen this, whatever, call the office here, ask. Say, hey, what's going on? Just make a phone call.
But that's one person.
I know,
but that's
still.
one person. But for every one person that's going to call or come up and say, hey, Brian, what's this about? You know, understand there's a Facebook page that's blowing up.
Oh, yeah.
And people are upset and nobody's getting the right information.
Right.
There's going to be 300 people who aren't going to do it.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And I know quite a few people in the township for being lived out as long as I have been, but even the people in the back row back here, I know almost everyone personally, including Mark right here too. I mean, I've met every one of these people over here, including Ed over there. So, and I've been in the fire department for 40 years and fire chief for 18, so I know quite a few people. And people have come to me and said, hey, John, what's this about? And I'll explain it to them. And I keep on trying to tell them, refer them, please read your newsletter. We're trying to explain as much as we can. But it's not a bad idea to send them direct out, you know, especially if you're going to see it at a race. But again, you know, don't forget that no matter what happens, we have to pay it somehow. and we're just trying to make sure it's equitable.
This, like, my comments aren't regarding the fee, my comments are regarding getting the right information out to people, not just you sitting here at a meeting, but bring the engineer in. I mean, I've worked out east with the DEP and the EPA regarding asbestos issues in Amber, Pennsylvania. You know what? You're right, like, we deserve to have the proper information so that you don't have conflicting information. Like, why not say, okay, in April, May, listen, come to this meeting, we're putting this together for you, and this is going to explain everything. If you have an appeal, this is the appeals process.
Okay. Okay, is there any other comments or questions?
I have one comment.
Yeah.
I've been to a supervisors meeting where there's only been 2 or 3 people there, and this has been discussed many, many times. So why don't you folks come out to the supervisors meeting a little more often? You'd find out a whole lot more about what's going on than throwing that piece of paper in the garbage.
I agree with you, and that's why I intend to come more often too. And it's something that we all should kind of spread amongst the rest of the residents, that even if you can't make it all the time, once in a while would be better. That way you're a little more informed on what's going on.
Yeah, sure, people can't always make it, but once in a while.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions or comments?
Public comments just about this subject or public comments in general?
No, you can do public comments in general.
Okay, cool. Do you want to go?
No, go.
My name's Kathy Oliver. I live on Evergreen Circle. And I came because I wanted to make the Board of Supervisors aware of the situation there with Evergreen Heights Development. And Brian knows I've called him numerous times. Anyone here who's familiar with Evergreen Circle, and I'm a new resident. I've only lived in Brighton Township since early last year. I've been in Beaver County since '99. And when I bought my house, the property across the street was sitting empty. I asked the realtor what the situation was with the property, and she lied and told me she didn't know. The plan had already been approved to put Evergreen Heights in. So moved in, and they started, I guess, last fall, working over on Evergreen Circle. So there aren't very many houses on Evergreen Circle, and the builder has come in and acted like, in my opinion, he's building a development on 500 acres in the middle of nowhere where he's not going to impact anybody. The impact for my family, and I'm sure for the other people that live on Evergreen Circle, has been severe. There has been environmental impact. They haven't had the appropriate environmental barriers put in place until I called. The street's been horrible with stone and mud and broken up. It's not addressed until I call. The builder is, you know, he's a home builder. He knows what the regs are. I shouldn't have to call about the regs. I shouldn't have to call and say they've disturbed the ground. There's no environmental barrier. We're talking about wastewater. Come on over when you have a bad storm. You can check it out. And to me, as a homeowner, they're disrupting my neighborhood. You know, Brighton Township talks about the neighborhoods. It's a great place to raise a family. I moved in. It's my neighborhood. The people that are going to buy these homes, these duplexes, they call them whatever, carriage homes now, they're duplexes. It's not their neighborhood yet. And the builder is acting like he can do whatever he wants. They took the power out. My daughter works from home. She couldn't work from home that day. They turned the water off. They didn't tell us they were going to turn the water off. We didn't have water. They closed the street. The school bus couldn't come up the street to pick up my grandchildren. We weren't notified. So they turned off the water. We weren't notified. They closed the street. We weren't notified. They knocked the power out. And they said that it was Duquesne Light's fault. It's always been somebody else's fault. It was the township's fault that we weren't notified. It was the township's fault that the street was closed and we weren't notified. The school district wasn't notified the street was going to be closed and the school bus couldn't come up the street. They parked their vehicles, they're destroying the side of the road, they're destroying the shoulder, They park their vehicles, the school bus has refused to come up the street because there's not room to navigate the street. So, you know, I'm one person, and there's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 or 6 houses on that little circle. And I don't know if anyone else is concerned or upset or not, but I am, because it's impacting my neighborhood. I bought a house in Brighton because Brighton Township's a nice place to live. It was a nice house on a nice street. They took the trees out. Did anyone do an environmental study? I don't know. We're up on that knoll, they took the trees out. It's like gale force wind up there all the time. The noise from the highway, you can hear it 24/7. Couldn't hear it before they took all the trees out. But I don't think anyone thought about that. So I wanted the board to be aware of what the situation is. I don't think that I should have to call about environmental regs. And if I hadn't worked in water and soil conservation, I wouldn't even know what the environmental regs are. So to me, I have to say the developer has been very easy to deal with when I've called him. I can't say that about the builder. He's been rude. He's talked to me like I'm an idiot, which I don't appreciate. And I told the developer I will not deal with him. And it needs to stop. I mean, today, you go drive up there today, there's mud all over the road. Yesterday when I walked my dog, I was picking up pieces of gravel this big and throwing them back over in their gravel bed where they're supposed to have the protection to keep the dirt from coming off the site. So, you know, I'm not against development. I get it. I understand people own property, people build houses. I get it, that they're not being a good neighbor. And I would like you all to be aware. And like I said to the developer, he wouldn't like it in his neighborhood, and I would like it in mine.
Thank you. Down there.
Take it on every week, things.
Okay. All right. We'll take a ride down there this week.
We've already been there.
Oh, you've
I
been
mean,
there?
We go
Oh,
every
okay.
week. It's not just as a result of your call, man. We go out every week just to check, and there's also multiple times during the week. So there's times they do get mud on the road. We're aware of the edge of the road getting raveled off, and that's bonded, so they will have to take care of that. Can't speak to them closing a road because they shouldn't have closed the road.
They did.
Certainly not without permission.
They put a barricade across it.
They can't close a road unless they're authorized, because if you close a road, you have to have a detour. But, I mean, I have pictures here actually from today, Monday we went out, and it looked pretty good today. There's no mud, no stone.
If I can add a little bit to it,
I'm not saying this is representative, because last Friday we did a road inspection, and I think last Friday we saw some things on the road, and we sent people up Friday. So.
Oh, I know, I'm
I
calling and
so-
bothering Brian, you know?
I understand.
Well, we come out as a matter of course, so you calling certainly helps, but we come out as a matter of course just to make sure they're compliant with what they.
I think part of this, so my name's Mike, I live there as well, I'm our son-in-law. And I don't think it's the response, the complaint is the response with any of you folks, actually. Once we're calling, there's a response, and it's appreciated. People respond to it and get on it quickly. Like she said, the developer's a perfectly decent person to deal with as well. The issue becomes, and I come from a commercial contracting background. I know the rules, I know the requirements. I don't wait for people to come after me. We take care of it, we do it the right way. Now, I've seen other, say in this instance, a competitor of mine, we go in the back alley where the limelight isn't shown on us. You can do pretty much anything you want. And that seems to be the general mentality that the general contractor there is operating. He doesn't have a lot of people watching him. He's in the back. There's not a whole ton of neighbors out there. And they're doing pretty much what they feel like doing. And it just, I think when it comes down to, we're fortunate enough, we don't have any disabled kids. We haven't had any emergencies. We haven't had any of those sort of things. But when they start running around like they own the neighborhood and don't respect the people that are around there, blocking roads, shutting off power, shutting off water, I mean, it's getting a little bit much. And, you know, the after the fact slap you on the hand, it's nice. But we're all sitting here talking about $66 fees for every house in the neighborhood for something that might happen. We're not even gonna test its effectiveness afterwards, right? But these guys, nothing's gonna happen to them.
And I have
So-
to add, until I called, it wasn't addressed at all. I mean, I called, it got to the point where there was pieces of mud and stuff on the road. I mean, it was ridiculous. So you may go out there every week, but I don't know that you've been going out there every week since they started up there. And if you were, we might have been looking at different stuff. Because until I called, I got to the point where I was so fed up that when I walked my dog on the street, I had to take my shoes off before I went in the house because they were covered with mud. That's a problem. And on another street where maybe there were more people and there were more people aware of it, it might not have gone on, honestly. I mean,
All of Tusca,
Yeah.
when they changed that water line on Tusca, that looked like a crystal palace.
That's
compared to
right.
that
That's
Evergreen
right.
Circle, I'm telling you.
Well, I mean,
Those
keep in
folks
mind,
are
that that's a difference in contractors too.
I
Well,
certainly
You know,
you
understand.
and
hit
so
the nail
if-
on the
if-
head right there.
If we have, I don't want to, there's much more effort being placed on this project, I think, than actually was placed on Tusca. Now, we had two projects that went on Tusca. The second project was, the silt fence is still there because the waiting for a permit from the state, and it'll get restored, but that took a lot of hands-on pressure just to keep that how it was. And it's the same with all these projects. If we go up, we take the photos, we document it, they get issued a letter. You know, it only takes, it's a matter of hours if someone's careless. You know, if you take a tandem axle wheel out there, they back off the road, when they pull out, there's 20, 30 pounds of mud that will get dropped off on the driveway. And sometimes these are delivery drivers too. It's not, I'm not defending the contractor, but it's somebody driving a concrete truck. He comes up, he dumps his load, he drags it down the street, and he's going back to the plant because he's going to, you know, New Brighton or someplace else.
I understand.
So those are all the things that we're dealing with. But, you know, even in the case of, you know, Aspen Fields we were talking about, I mean, we're there once or twice a week and they get issued a law. Oftentimes it's the subs, it's the drywallers that are coming in, or the brick masons that are coming in, or the electricians that are making these messes. But in that case, we have one developer there who's accountable. We go to him and he goes after them. But the next week, if it's wet, where a frost breaks or something happens like that, it's right back out on the road. And one of the challenges we have with the mud, we can scrape it with a bucket, but to apply any water with the temperatures the way they've been, you can't really scrub the road, because that is really what you make them do. If they scrub it enough, they'll learn, and it'll cost them enough when they scrub the road that they won't continue to do that. So it hasn't gone unnoticed, and I hope you don't feel that way. Certainly, we keep applying the pressure on him. And if you've spoken to the developer, he's trying as well with his contractors. So he's getting it from the township, and those gentlemen, those contractors are actually getting it from the person that pays them. So we're, you know, kind of pushing on both sides for the compliance.
You know, and I don't mean to make this come off as it's directed toward you. It's
No, it wasn't taken that way.
Right. We get all that, and they're applying the pressure and all that. I mean, that works, and they're trying, and that's great. They got, you know, a B maybe for effort, but all these people are trying to comply with their fees and everything. Something's gonna happen to them if they don't pay their fees. And these guys, I'm telling you, the mud doesn't really bother me. Doesn't scare me, doesn't bother me. But shutting off power, shutting off water, shutting off access for my kids to get on their bus. What happens if there's a fire? I mean, it's just, at some point, something has to be done more than, hey, can you please stop it? If I hire a contractor and he goes, destroys that road, or shuts off somebody else's power and causes a major problem, I'm the person that's gonna be responsible for it. I don't care if I've hired 16 subs and second-tier subcontractors. I hired them. it's my responsibility. So at some point, you know, just applying pressure, I don't know what you do, but
Well, I mean, under the regulations, continued violations like this, that's why they're documented, that's why it's written. Then they can be cited by the township, they can magistrate.
Did you just
So-
happen to have those pictures today, or did you know I was coming?
I don't know. I've never
Just
spoke or.
curious. I mean,
No,
I could show you
that-
about 100, but.
Well, I believe you,
I
but
just-
no, Friday, we actually had a
It's
road
amazing
inspection.
to me that, you know, you just happen to have pictures and I'm here tonight.
No, we had and I have more pictures in my folder here. We had a road inspection Friday with all the supervisors. We drove all over the township, and on Friday, the road was dirty. And they were told it needed to be cleaned, and so usually we follow up to make sure they say it's clean, it was clean. So,
See, but that's my point though. Like I said, I worked in soil and water in Maryland, and Maryland's way tougher than PA
it is.
on environmental. I mean.
A lot of regulations that are in place here now were in place 15 years ago in Maryland.
Well, and that's about when I was working in Maryland, more than that, quite honestly. And I worked along the Chesapeake, so I know what the regs are, okay? Probably more than what PA holds. My point is, he's a GC. He's not a new GC. He's been around. He shouldn't have to be told to clean the road. And whether it's his sub, whether it's, I don't care who it is, there's been a whole slew of subs. And he knows the regs. When I talk to him, he blames everyone else. Oh, it's the guys doing the demo. Oh, it's the guys doing this. No, it's you. You're the GC. You know the reg. You wouldn't be in business. You shouldn't be in business if you don't know the reg. You shouldn't have to go out there because he shouldn't be doing it. That's not the way it's supposed to work. That's what bothers me. When I come home from work and I walk my dog, which I do multiple times a day, and I see that, I know that he knows. And he doesn't care. And he's not gonna clean it unless you guys drive by or I call Brian and complain. Because he didn't. Because when it all started at the very beginning, he didn't. He had an access put in. It was quite some time before he came and put the big rock in. He took out the one whole side where the road's gonna go up there. And he didn't put the environmental barrier in until I called Brian and complained. And we had, you know what the rain's been like. So it comes down, runs down along the road, all the way down, there's that pond that sits down there. I wonder what the silt's like in that pond. I mean, I know I'm being a dead horse right now, but the frustration, it's just, it's ridiculous. It really is. It's just unnecessary, and, you know, and I'm gonna continue to call, because I know he's gonna continue not to comply. He set the tone.
A couple of things that you did mention, though. If access is closed,
Pardon me?
if the road's closed and there's not a permit, or they don't have a detour, nobody was notified, all you have to do is call the township. And I don't want to speak for the chief, but I think that would be remedied pretty quick. And I was unaware, I don't think we were aware that they blocked the access. The electric, I'm not sure what went on there. Whether somebody struck something,
They
or
did.
it probably was a dump truck that didn't put his bed down, more likely, because we're seeing.
No, it was underground, actually.
underground.
And they blamed Paul, whatever.
Paul.
Yeah,
It wasn't
they
property
blamed them for that.
Well, that's, again, we can't
I know.
control that piece.
I know.
If it's marked and they hit it, or if they're careless when they dig. The water, I know we did have a water break
Well, no, they turned it off.
in that area.
Well, they turned it off to put the pipe across the road, but we weren't notified.
We messed up.
But, I mean, so as far as the access, we could take care of that very quickly.
Well, wouldn't there be a record, if she said it happened on this date and the permit wasn't issued? Looks like it's pretty straightforward from there, right?
Which permit is
But
that?
this lady said the road was closed on
There
this.
were no road
You
closure.
know, they did.
To my knowledge,
Well,
there were
then
no
if she
road
tells
closure
you-
permits issued.
Unless we have reason to, I'm sure there's more than one person that could substantiate.
Sure. But that should not be the case. They were not issued anything to close their roads.
Well, but that's.
And if the water was shut off, that was,
And the thing is, I understand the water being shut off, that there should be notification. And unfortunately, we're at the very beginning right now, you know, and they haven't even built the model home yet. So I don't foresee it getting better. To me, he's going to continue. He's going to continue the way it's been. So I'm just going to continue to call. The reason I'm here, the reason is here, because we wanted to bring it to the commissioner's attention that I have called, and called, and called, and called, and Brian is sick of me. Hey, Brian, how you doing? It's Kathy Oliver again, you know? And I shouldn't have to call, that's the thing. He's been, you know, he's been told. I don't know what you do. I don't know if you fine them. I mean, I know what they do in Maryland, but, you know, I don't know. It's just, I shouldn't have to continually call and call and call and call and call. And I don't want to do that for the next 6 or 9 or 12 months, as long as it takes them to build the duplexes.
We'll have to discuss with our engineer manager then about how to rectify the situation, so it's not going to be a continued headache. So that I can straighten up. So we'll make sure we start taking a look at this, see what's going on then.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Okay, you have one more?
I do.
Okay.
Zambetti, Orchard Drive, 138. I have a question as far as code enforcement. Who's the code enforcement officer?
Well, most of the ordinances are written that they can be enforced by a police officer or zoning officer or manager. It depends on the code itself.
Okay.
These inspections we have done as far as site development, our engineer does.
Okay.
I would be ineligible.
So then my question carries on to, at the end of last year, we had an issue on our road because of 146.
For the, okay,
Orchard
that's,
Drive.
yes,
You know who 146 is, everybody does.
yes.
And Jess Manganello was directed to call Pella Consulting.
They should call me first.
Okay, my question is, who is Pella Consulting?
We have a contract with Pella Consulting to enforce the property maintenance code.
So I looked up Pella Consulting, and I looked it up last year because Jess was told to call Pella Consulting.
Right.
There is no public phone number for Pella Consulting. Pella Consulting is not a business.
It's 2 individuals. It's 2 individuals.
They're not a business registered in the state of VA.
They're, I can't answer specifically to their registrations in Pennsylvania.
So, I think my question is, if we're paying them, are you 1099ing them?
Yes,
Okay.
we would 1099 them. We just paid them, I mean, we just started again last year. Last year we adopted the International Property Maintenance Code, which was, we had some property maintenance regulations as a local ordinance, but we adopted the International Property Maintenance Code. And we contract with them to assist in certain inspections.
So what are we supposed to do, because...
Well, call me first.
Okay, well, what if you're not available and we...
The police chief can help also.
This has been, as you know, it's been multiple years, and we're coming into the days are longer, and 146 Orchard has already been cited for burning.
Yes.
What do we do then if we're told we'll call Pella Consulting?
No, contact the township office, either myself or the police chief. I refer them to Pella Consulting for certain types of inspections or code enforcement, perhaps.
Okay, so then what do we do if there's an issue and we call the police and
You
they
talking
don't...
about property maintenance specifically?
It could be property maintenance, it could be burning, it could be trespassing.
Well, I think trespassing or burning, dogs, those types of calls go through the police department for
so
enforcement. Any of the officers can come out, do a site inspection, issue a report.
So then I guess I should direct this then to the chief, because what happens when the 2 officers show up and don't want to do anything? They don't want to cite them.
Well, you would talk to the police chief about that because he supervises them.
All right.
And there's certain things they may refer back to him depending on what it is or if it's an active case. And that might be the case there. I mean, the chief would be the best person to talk to about certain types of violations. As you mentioned, they've been cited multiple times for different violations. And,
All right,
you know, I've been out there myself
right.
for several different
Right.
violations.
Garbage.
I've met with them, we've hired
Okay.
interpreters and everything to meet
Right,
with them.
right. I just didn't know, like, who, my questions were, who was are they being 1099 because
Yes.
we're not a registered business in the state?
They are.
And then what do we do?
Yeah,
Like, if we're told to call Pella because there is no phone number.
right. Yeah, they
So-
would, Hello would only be if I referred to.
All right,
Okay. All right.
thumbs up?
5 minutes.
All right, we're gonna take a 5-minute break then, this time.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Congratulations, Mark.
I'm just going to disappear, but at 9 o'clock, I do have to go home and get ready for work, so.
Well, hey, I haven't seen you for 3 months in the fire department. You gotta get your.
Honestly, with as much stuff that's been going on with the house, I couldn't afford to just pay a contractor to do everything, so most of my time was spent working on the house, doing things to assist it along, and it still took them until after New Year's to completely finish it. It was, it's ridiculous, and now,
No, I know, believe me.
now that it's starting to fall out, I can actually start to clean up from their mess.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and restart the meeting. Everybody, okay, you ready? You guys ready? Okay, all right, the minutes from the February 11th, 2019 regular meeting. If you don't have reviewed them, need a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
First and second, all in favor, signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Okay, February reports, treasurer.
Okay, treasurer's report, month ending for February 2019. General fund checking, $86,508.55. Payroll account, $41,515.42. Our Veterans Memorial Fund, $4,715.41. Pliget, $80,293.59. Our Prime account, $451,948.62. Term, $200,000. We have a grant account with $12,792.69. 2 Mile Run checking, $75,337.94. We have escrows we're holding of $35,871.27. Our storm sewer revenue fund has $43,986.08. Our capital reserve fund, $1,380,724.09. Our state liquid fuels, $219,467.24.
Okay, building permits.
Okay, for the month of February, we issued permits for 1 duplex, 3 single-family homes, 2 permits for renovation projects in the hospital. Estimated construction value, $2,266,778. Year to date, $2,602,991.
Okay, road department.
You got a copy of the road department's written report. Month of February, winter maintenance as needed. Called out for a lot of tree damage, clean up trees. We've been doing sign inventory and replacing signs. We have a mudslide down on Pine Grove Road, we need to clean that area up. Also, did the monthly maintenance on all the vehicles and equipment as listed. Some building and grounds maintenance. We also did 2 camera work on 2 storm sewers in anticipation of repair projects. You got the rest of the written report there.
Okay, police department, chief.
Yes, sir. Total incidents for the month, there was 338. Citations issued, moving violations, there was 95. Citations issued, non-moving violations, there was 5. There was 1 parking violation. 7 traffic warnings were issued. Criminal arrests for the month, there was 9 of them. Total miles driven, 10,053. Total gallons of fuel that was consumed was 795. Total hours worked was 2,558. and the magistrate fines collected was $921.76.
Fire department.
Month of February, we had 6 fire alarms, 2 carbon monoxide calls, 3 accidents, 2 car fires, 6 service calls, 8 wires down. Was just at Vanport one time for a fire alarm, 21 QRS calls. Total calls for February is 49. Year to date is 89. Man hours for February is 203. And man hours year to date is 469 for everything. And you have some of the other numbers there for your reference.
Okay. Report tax collectors.
Tax collections in February, Herkimer earned income taxes, $208,034.94. Local service tax, $28,113.67. Per capita tax, $299.50. Recorder of deeds transfer tax, January, $24,179.51.
Report fines.
Okay, fines collected month of February, clerk of courts, $31.83. District justice, $921.76.
And recycling.
Month of February, recycling collected, newsprint and commingled, 18.17 tons. Year to date, 53.74.
Any questions or comments on the reports as read?
No.
We have a motion to approve the February reports as read.
So moved.
Second. First and second, all by signifying aye. Aye. So carried. Personnel actions. Part-time police officer. Chief Glenn has recommended the board approve the hiring of William Peak. Is that correct? Yes, sir. As a part-time police officer at a starting rate of $18 an hour, first year with experience, subject to 6-month probationary period, physical and psychological examination. So we need a motion then to approve the hiring of William Peak as a part-time police officer.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
First and second, all in favor, signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Okay, removed from probation status. Officer Zachary Spearing and Joe Donarski have completed the 6-month probationary period as a part-time police officer. Chief Glenn has recommended their removal from probationary status. The motion be in order.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
First and second, all in favor, signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Seasonal employment. Each year, the board approves the hiring of seasonal employees. It is recommended the board approve the hiring of the following individuals. James R. Shaw, 17 Circle Drive, $11 per hour. Charles Bates, 2785 Duttridge Road, $11 an hour. Leslie Brightwell, 300 McKinley Road, Beer Falls, at $10 an hour. And Daniel B. Hayes, 3405 Duttridge Road, at $9.50 an hour. These are our grass cutting crew.
Make the motion to hire these 4 people.
I'll second.
The first and second to hire the 4 seasonal employees is listed above. All in favor, signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Brighton Township MS4 program. Ned, I think you pretty much covered everything, or you have something else?
Yes, I did, Mr. Cadet, yes. I had nothing to add.
All right, thank you. Seasonal maintenance. It is requested that the board authorize the release of an RFP for general turf mowing and trimming service maintenance at 2 Mile Run Park and Richmond School, and authorize the awards in the best interest of the township. So it's requested that the board authorize the release of the RFP for general turf mowing and trimming services maintenance.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
First and second, all for signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Okay, authorize the purchase of utility trailer. Quotation in the amount of $3,620 has been received from Bennett Trailer Sales for purchase of a 16-foot landscape utility trailer to be used by the grounds maintenance. So it's recommended the board authorize the purchase of the trailer from Bennett Sales for $33,620. This is the haul mowers.
I'll make that motion to approve the purchase of the utility trailer.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. The set proposal for geotechnical investigation. The stress cracks have been located on Gypsy Glen Road in the area of 2615. The Township Engineer's Office has met on-site with Consulting Engineering Consultants Incorporated and has received the proposal in the estimated amount of $6,200 to conduct geotechnical investigation to identify the potential cause of the earth movement and the action plan. The Township will report on the subject further.
As you recall, during the road inspection, we all had the opportunity to see the cracks and distress along Gypsy Glen and the nearly 2-foot vertical displacement at slope. So we did receive we solicited 3 proposals for geotechnical services, which range from the 6,200 that was to 15,000, which was for a very detailed one. And we recommend award to construction engineering consultants in the amount of, it was actually $6,820.
So it's $6,820?
Yes. And now that's an estimate based on the boring depth they had.
Okay.
And they'll provide to the township a detailed report on how to address that area of distress. And then concurrent with that, we'll be looking at the possibility of Public Works installing storm sewers to get the water away from that area that's moved.
Okay. Do you know about when they would do this? I know they said they couldn't come out like within a week or so.
They said about 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks to come out?
Probably.
I want to,
3 weeks.
I'm sorry.
That's all right, right ahead.
I'm going to assume we might be out of the right of way, so we want to make sure we name the property owner. Want our certificate of insurance.
One location would probably be outside of the right of way.
All right, and then I want to ask Mr. Reed to prepare a release or something, Mr. Reed? I'll get that too beforehand. Before we go on the property, that's all. I've talked to the property owner, so they're aware that we're going to be doing this.
And Ned, you said the estimate, it's an estimate for 6,820.
Yes, there were fixed fees on the actual report, and the only variable is the length of borings, which they give us a per foot measurement, so we'll keep track of the quantities. If they have to drill a little bit deeper, if they don't find suitable material, or if they find suitable material quick. For example, they had estimated soil drilling and sampling 80 linear feet. And then they'll do some Shelby tubes as well, but, and there's rock cores as well. So depending on what they find and what they see in the cuttings, they may drill a little bit further just to see what they're into.
And we're thinking about 2 weeks. Hopefully it doesn't get worse. Yeah, okay, thank you.
The time frame though, Ned, like the time they do the core borings, we say 2 weeks. So we're estimating then by our April meeting, we'll have a course of action then, you would think?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just afraid of heavy rains, what's going to happen there.
I agree.
Okay, have a motion then to approve contract with CEC in the amount of $6,820.
I'll second.
The first and second, all those signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Beaver County Regional Call 2019 Spring Commodities Bid. At the February meeting, the board authorized the submission of estimated quantities for the 2019 Beaver County Call Spring Commodities. At this date, the bid results have not been reported. We haven't heard anything.
I've not heard anything. No, I haven't.
I meant to get over there this week, didn't I?
Okay, the 2019 Roadway Improvement Program. The board has authorized the release of bids for the 2019 road paving program. The bid opening will occur prior to the April meeting. 2019 budget includes $635,000 for road paving. The selected streets are as follows: Western Avenue from Dutch Ridge to the culvert past Lynn Haven, Maplewood Drive entire length, Spicewood entire length, Orchard Drive entire length, Apple Tree entire length, Woodlawn Drive entire length, Woodview Drive entire length. Add alternate number 1, street number 2nd Avenue, its entire length, 3rd Avenue entire length, Terrace Avenue, at the 2nd Avenue to end. Add alternate number 2, Western Avenue, all the way to Beaver Street to the end. So that would be the streets. So the bid will also contract some paving for the Township Sewage Authority. Township engineer can advise the board if there's any other information regarding the paving program.
We sent the advertisement, it will be placed in the paper, and I will have a bid report for your consideration at the next meeting for action.
I got a copy of the advertisement, so they're scheduled for bid opening 11 a.m. April 2nd.
Say it again, April 2nd.
Yes.
Okay, the Fire Department Social Hall. Fire Department, the Brighton Township VFD has proposed transferring ownership of the Social Hall to the Township subject to preparation of an agreement between the Township and the Fire Department. The solicitor has prepared an agreement for consideration that addresses future use of the property by the VFD and its members. A deed also is being prepared for the transfer. The solicitor can advise the board on the status of the agreement and the deed preparation. Mr. Reed?
Excuse me. The deed has been prepared and I have delivered it to Kevin this evening. There is an agreement as to use of the premises by the fire department. I drafted one, Brian and Kevin met and reviewed it, changed it slightly, and it has been prepared. And is that, did I give you that one?
Yep, I got it right here.
2 pages,
Yep.
Is that, let me see the first page. Yeah, that's it, that's it. And I have a copy for the township to sign and a copy for, and I'm giving a copy to Kevin. There is one change in it, the difference between what the original resolution and what Brian and Kevin discussed. I have incorporated the change into the new agreement, but I want to speak to both of them, not here in the meeting as such, but I want to speak to both of them as to the revision which is in conflict. So next move is up to the fire department to prepare the deed, and then we have a mutual understanding between the township and the fire department as to the future use.
Okay, we have to, the fire department has to prepare the deed?
Beg pardon?
It's signed, it's prepared.
Just got signed.
Oh, it's signed already?
No,
Not the
it's
deed.
not signed, I just delivered it to him.
Oh, okay, all right.
This is the deed.
All right, because what we already signed the other form.
We didn't sign the revision.
Okay,
It was just kind of, we approved it,
okay,
and we'll go over it. Mr. Reed wants to go over it again, but
okay.
then we'll have to sign the revision.
Right.
Remember, I printed it off and it was all, had the notes on it, but the fire department approved it. He just wants to go over with us again and make sure, and then you'll have to sign, this is the actual revision.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I would suggest that the supervisors approve the agreement as it has been revised and given to Kevin here this evening, so that you don't have to put it back on the agenda if the fire department finds it acceptable.
Okay. All right, I need a motion that for the revisions on the agreement.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
First and second, all in favor signifying aye.
Aye.
So for carried. Okay, the DCNR grant, Diana Property, Hardy Field Park Edition. Brighton Township has received approval to proceed with the documentation of the DCNR property acquisition grant related to the Diana property purchase. The grant amount is $43,000. The terms for the grant agreement require a new deed to be recorded that includes specific non-conversion language. The town solicitor has prepared that deed. The solicitor can review the deed with the board. Thereafter, a motion will be in order to authorize execution of the deed recorded.
I have prepared the deed and I gave it to Brian for signature after approval. It is a deed from the township to the township for exactly the same property as you got from Diana. There has been a slight difference in the description, which is as a result of a survey prepared by Lennon Smith. The whole purpose of it is on the second page where it says, the purpose of this deed is to subject this property to the following condition required by the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Without reading the condition, it basically says that since we have been given money from the department, they have control over the disposition of the property. No change or use or transfer of ownership, control, or interest in this property may occur without the written consent of the department. And that's the whole purpose of the deed.
Okay.
It's just, you're giving to yourself exactly the same thing that you already have.
Okay.
But you're enabling Brian to collect the money that would otherwise be held up by the department. I forget how much it is, $43,000?
Yes, that's
or
correct.
something like that.
Yes.
So it's yes, that's it's not an inconsequential amount.
So we need a motion to approve the documentation with DCNR.
To approve execution of the revised deed.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
First and second, all in favor, signifying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried.
The deed provides for the chairman to sign, the township manager to sign, and the township seal to be affixed. And I can take care of the notarization and the recording.
Okay. Okay, the DCNR grant, 2 Mile Run Park Trails. Brighton Township received a pre-construction checklist for the DCNR grant funding for Trails Project in 2 Mile Run Park. Grant award is $155,000. One item required is the execution of the agreement with the design consultant for the project. The township engineer has submitted a service order authorization for 2 Mile Run Park Trails project. The estimated cost of surveys, design, and bidding services, PADEP, permitting, general product service, and construction inspection is $42,500. The DCNR has reviewed the documentation and had determined it meets their requirements. The engineer can provide any additional information if he wishes to share with the board. Thereafter, a motion will be in order to approve the authorization and execution of the services order authorization with LSSE for the 2 Mile Run Park Trails project. Ned, we okay?
Yeah, I have is, if you authorize the work, we'll get the survey scheduled. Now's the time of year to get it done because with all the veg, the leaves are down there. Because that area is pretty heavily wooded.
That's what I'm talking about.
Really, Ned, what's your time frame for plan design? Would you estimate? You have to get general permits and all that as well.
Yeah, the design's probably only a few months. The permitting is the
Probably best to bid it over the winter and with this next year construction in mind, rather than trying to do something late summer, fall.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And the other thing I would add, unless the permits come back very fast, but once we get everything, there's several steps that we have to submit to DCNR. They have to review the plans, review the specifications, and there's a lot of back and forth. And then we have other outside agencies that have to approve it as well. So if everything came together, we might go pull it off. But worst case, we would be looking at the spring.
We have 3 years to complete the project, so it might be better to know you have a good construction season the whole year ahead of you, rather than trying to force it in late in the year.
Any questions or comments? Okay, we can have a motion to authorize the execution of the services order authorization with LSE, the 2 Mile Run Park.
So moved.
Second.
First and second, all in favor signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Application for public education and involvement credit. The application has been filed for public education involvement credit for the activities related to stormwater quality. Activities will be conducted in partnership with Dutch Ridge Elementary School science classes, particularly with the 5th grade class involving water quality testing and education on matters of stormwater on water quality. The board can grant credit up to 10% in this category for the Beaver Area School District property. The credit would be $435.60. This is through Mrs. Stedford, I believe it is.
Yeah, she spearheaded the grant
spearheaded.
project, and it's the 5th grade. They'll do testing at 2 Mile Creek in their stormwater basins. We're going to arrange for a presentation at the school by the engineer's office, myself, on the stormwater and water quality, that type of thing. So it's several hundred students that will be involved. You know, it helps. What's our MC1, MC2? I forget which one's public involvement, education. It'll help us achieve that goal. So.
MC1 and MC2.
Yep. Any questions or comments?
No.
All right, can I have a motion then to approve it?
I'll make the motion to approve that.
I'll second.
I have a first and second, all in favor signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Okay, we have an excess maintenance agreement, 2019-02. An overposted weight hauling permit application and excess maintenance agreement have been filed by Appalachian Midstream Services, LLC, for a 2.1 mile section of Pine Grove Road. This is work that will take place at the gas line crossing on a segment between Oak Grove Road and Doyle Drive. This is to make repairs onto the slide area. Motion being ordered and approved authorization and execution of excess maintenance agreement 2019-02 with Appalachian Midstream Services, LLC, for 2.1 miles of Pine Grove Road.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
First and second, all in favor signifying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. Ordinance number 220, adopting and amending the official zoning map. In February, the board rescheduled a public hearing on proposed ordinance to adopt a revised zoning map and change the zoning classification of 3 properties, 5145, 5155, 5165 Tuscarawas Road, from C1 neighborhood commercial to R1 rural residential. The hearing date could not be conducted in March due to time period required for the notice requirements. Therefore, it will be conducted in April. A motion has been ordered to schedule a public hearing on the ordinance to adopt the revised official zoning map at 6:15 on April 8th at 2019.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
First and second, all in favor signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. The loose plan of lot revisions. Application has been filed by Robert G. and Tina L. Luce of 114 Coleman Drive for a lot line revision between 114 and 116 Coleman Drive. Encloses a copy of the site plan dated January 23rd, 2019, prepared by Pringle Nero Land Surveyor Incorporated. The Township Engineers review comments dated February 11th, 2019, and the Beaver County Planning Commission review comments dated February 6th, 2019. A revision has been submitted to address the review comments. At their meeting in February 4th, 2019, the Brighton Township Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the loose plan of lot revision as prepared by Pringle Nero Land Surveyor Incorporated, dated January 23rd, 2019, and last revised February 13th, 2019, subject to the additional driveway being constructed on parcel B to access the detached garage within 6 months of the plan recording. After review, the plan can determine if they're prepared to take action on the plan recommended by the Planning Commission. Now, didn't his dad live at one before he passed away on one side of that?
Right. So Robert G.
Yeah.
Greg Luce, he owns both properties now, as you mentioned. One was his father's. He rents the other out currently. He's thinking long-term, maybe not long-term, but his intent is probably to sell one of the properties. So he's adjusting the lot line for that garage, so it's on the lot of the house he lives in. The one comment was on the review was about the driveway to access that garage is on the other property. I gave you a copy of the revised plan, a photocopy of part of it, not the whole plan.
Right.
And I spoke to the owner, and he stated his intentions then are to construct a second driveway on to access that garage from parcel B.
This was his dad's. This is where Greg's living now, right?
Greg lives in parcel B,
Oh, he's living over here now.
yes.
Oh, okay.
I don't recall which is which. I
I thought his dad lived here.
think he did, and I think they built this and moved his dad into it.
Okay.
And then he went into the main house. That's what I recall. But in any event, that's what he stated his intent is. They put a note on the plan. The recommendation of the planning commission was to put a requirement in the approval that that be completed within 6 months of plan recording. So it's not an open-ended item.
Any questions or comments?
No.
Jim?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, then can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
First and second, all in favor, signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried.
Okay, that'll be with the condition that the planning
Right, with the
commission.
condition of plan commission, yes.
Mhm.
Okay, bond release request, Evergreen Heights Plan Subdivision. Bond release number 1 has been submitted by the owners of Evergreen Heights Plan Subdivision. Township engineer will present his review and recommendations for the release. After review of the township engineer's recommendation, the board can take action on the release request.
So we received by email a request for bond reduction. We went out, we visited the site. The developer was requesting a release of $117,310. Based upon our review, our recommendation is a release of $45,025.30. So in summary, the current bond amount is $251,653.93. Based on our recommendation, it would be reduced from that amount to $206,628.63, which is 110% of the total cost of the remaining work, plus a 10% contingency for completed items.
So we're just authorizing the bond release of $45,025.30.
That's correct.
Any other comments, Ned?
They didn't use the form that we typically give to them, and I don't know where they came up with $117,000. There was $117,000 worth of work done. So.
It appears they also included the sanitary and the water
Right.
request in the one release.
Right, which would have to go to each respective agency on the township.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? All right, we have a motion then to release the $45,025.30 recommended by the engineer.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
First and second, all in favor signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Aspen Fields Phase 1 and 2, Brighton Township accepted the streets and storm source system in Aspen Fields Phase 1 and 2 in August of 2017. An inspection has been conducted by the township engineer and a report issued by a letter of January 10, 2019. To date, those items have not been addressed. So release of the maintenance bond will be deferred pending engineer's confirmation that the maintenance items have been addressed.
Well, I suggest we defer releasing the bond until the work is complete.
If I'm not mistaken, then I was through there today, and I think they put up all brand new silt sock all over the place.
Well,
No, I mean, that's just part of it, but
yeah, they, well,
somebody was doing something in there.
it get a little messy in there, so
Yeah.
they took care of that. But as far as the phase 1 and 2, the outstanding items are not significant, but they are weather related. So,
Okay.
in speaking with Mr. When I called him to ask him what the status was, he said he's gonna wait until the weather breaks,
Okay.
which I think is more appropriate, given what the repairs they have to make. It's crack sealing, clean the debris from inlets. There's a couple under drains that need to be trimmed off in the manholes, and there's one inlet that's needs adjusted. So again, all this will either require mortar or hot sealing material, which isn't appropriate to use in this weather.
Okay. All right, Aspen Fields Plan Lots Phase 5, application has been filed by Marana Homes Incorporated, the Aspen Fields Plan of Lots Phase 5. This is the final plan phase, and it consists of 24 lots. Township engineer by letter February 8, 2019 states that all prior review comments have been addressed. The final outstanding item is the execution of the development agreement.
the gentleman here to present.
Okay.
Well, thank you, folks. My name is John Wright at Len Smith Solar Engineering. They're from Rhonda Homes. This is the final phase of Aspen Fields, phase 5. Working with Brian in regards to kind of some requests and some things that need to be added to the plans. Everything said to go, it's the final phase. It's directly dead center. It's the leftover parcels. Things that you might see that pop out there is an open space per their PRD requirements that are set up here. We went and did extra landscaping to ensure that that was better than just an open field. We also extended public utilities such as sanitary, water, and electric to ensure that if this was ever used for public use and they wanted to put a pavilion or they wanted something public use, they have that access to it. And also the cul-de-sac, as postal services change, you need cluster mailboxes now instead of individual mailboxes. So those were added on this part of the cul-de-sac to give enough room for queuing, so if one person pulls up, you don't end up having a bunch of cars standing in front of someone's driveway when you're trying to come home, as well as the garbage can to be handled by the HOA, as we talked about. Hopefully it's not your pamphlet that just sent out that goes into the garbage, but this way, as people jump, they don't have to worry about some trash laying around.
Is that going to be slotted, or just going to be open container?
For
that trash can?
The trash can, I believe it's covered to for weather, and they could put it into kind of underneath that cover, but it's whatever the HOA decides.
Well, if it's up to the HOA, maybe there's an option so that someone couldn't put their hand in there and go after mail that's been discarded.
Although he's talking about the trash container.
There is
the mail is, they're locked.
Okay.
No one can get in. You have to have a key to access.
Okay.
That you're talking about, so someone discards their junk mail, we want it to be available to where somebody can't go through there.
Correct.
I misunderstood.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because if they see, if you're going out to get your mail and you're not interested in reading it, the first thing you're going to do is either take it home with you or go to the most available.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we can perhaps go back and try to find something that's a little bit more secure, perhaps, that could be handled. This way the HOA has their key, and when they want to get rid of the trash, this way you're correct, somebody can. Yeah, well, put not just a kind of open tin can, somebody can throw something in garbage through. So
or even a lit cigarette. Now you have a fire.
That's even better for us.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Into that. Folks, have any other questions for me? I'm glad to answer. So just one little outstanding that's coming for us. When you get to the final part of the subdivision and you have all these lots that kind of have to have closures, and it's over a 10-year process. GPS gets a lot more accurate over the years, so we're working this week to ensure that everything closes, as well as through the sanitary authority to ensure that as-built information and design information is done on, so we don't have to worry about anything going wrong with that. So that's still kind of an ongoing thing, since it's a little bit kind of putting a puzzle piece together to get to that centerpiece. Sometimes things got to make sure it's a little bit tighter. So.
There are open space parcels that are actually in other phases that are around the perimeter of the plan that have not been dedicated yet. They ultimately go to Brighton Township. When they did phase 4, they were kind of waiting because there was still work involving the detention pond.
Yes, sir.
And there was some work in the open space area as a result of that. Maybe you can check on the status of that too, and what their plan is for transferring the final open space parcel.
And with the open space concerning the pond as well too, the pond services, phase 5 slope sewers go into that pond, so maybe they are waiting part of the construction, because then once construction's finished, that'll go from a sedimentation pond into the post-construction after that, so it won't need. So I don't know, I could absolutely check with the school on that. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, at their meeting on March 4th, 2019, the Brighton Township Planning Commission recommended preliminary approval of the Aspen Fields plan of lots phase 5 as prepared by Len Smith Solar Engineering Incorporated, with final plan approval subject to the following conditions. Execution of developer's agreement with Brighton Township Sewage Authority, Brighton Township Municipal Authority. Final plan approval and recording will be subject to the terms set forth in the developer's agreement regarding completing and improvements or bonding as the situation dictates. Compliance with the conditions of the August 12, 2002 Aspen Fields PRD conditional use application approval. Compliance with the conditions of August 12, 2002 Aspen Fields PRD tentative approval application approval. The township solicitor has prepared a development agreement for Phase 5. As in prior phases, the developer proposes to construct the public improvements in advance of the plan recording. At the time of plan recording, the engineer will determine the amount to be bonded. The township engineer and the township solicitor can advise if they have any further comments. Therefore, the board can act upon the plan and authorize the execution of the developer's agreement. Ned, you have anything on this here?
I will make sure that Mark's comments addressed, as well as either by letter from the developer or we'll put in the developer's agreement. Likewise, with the transfer of those parcels, it was staggered because of the multiple phases, but it might be appropriate just to put it in the developer's agreement along with these conditions, so it doesn't get missed.
There will be another plan come before the board. If he's going to install the improvements now, I think the agreement Mr. Reed wrote is an agreement that more or less says you're going to go ahead and build improvements now, but we'll have another agreement when you record the plan. So we'll address, before we record the plan, we'll find the answer out to at least to the open space.
Yes.
This is the same way they developed Phase 4.
Right.
Where they put it in the ground first and had us inspect it and then covered it over.
It basically works at risk.
Yeah.
Until it gets enough done.
Mr. Reed, do you have any other comment?
I have no further comment. I prepared the agreement. It is in the same form that we used for Phase 4, for which they have done the work, and we've had experience with the manner in which they've been doing it. And I understand from Brian that the executed agreement has been returned to him, executed by Miranda. So the next move is up to the township to accept the manner in which it will be done, which will be identical to the way in which they handled Phase 4.
Okay, so if you guys have any questions or comments?
Negative.
Okay, then I need a motion then to act upon and approve the authorization and execution of the development agreement with stipulations as read.
So moved.
I'll second.
First and second, all in favor signifying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. How was it with you?
We'll be on the trash first thing tomorrow. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
Take care.
Right, Phase 1 stormwater pond restoration.
Come and present his plan.
The township solicitor is coordinating with Attorney Michael Jones. Attorney Jones on the access agreement to undertake the project to restore the basin of Brighton Fields Phase 1 and modify so it achieves the goals of Brighton Township pollution reduction plan. The township engineer has been authorized to prepare and design drawings and bid documents for the project. The solicitor can report on the status of the agreement.
The agreement was prepared and submitted to Mr. Jones as the solicitor for Brighton Fields homeowners. He made some changes in it as requested by us. He also sent back an email which said that he would like one or two changes, and they fall into Ned's category because he wants an agreement that the detention facilities are to exclude the catch basins and sewer lines. He wants to have the best managed practices, the BMP, attached to the agreement, and he wants confirmation from the township engineer that the detention facility in the back of the plan, which is in Phase 3, is currently approved.
So we got him the information relative to the inspection we did in 2016 and also sent the inspections from 2018. So he should have that confirmation that it was acceptable when we sent that agreement to them. If you recall, they did
You
not.
sent that directly to him?
It was sent by email because I attached the documents to it, so I copied you on it.
Oh, is that just recent?
Today.
Don't have it yet.
With that being said, after going through some of his comments, if you recall, the Phase 3 pond was the BMP agreement was never executed. And if you recall, as such, we did not accept dedication of the storm source on the roadways. What Mr. Jones, after I read his email to Solicitor Reed, I thought it was making this very, very complicated. We wanted to take the BMP agreement from Phase 3, which is totally separate from what we're doing, and try to wrap it together with Phase 1, which would have made one document that would have been, I think, very difficult to follow. So what we're going to send back to him is the agreement for the back stands on its own and needs to be signed. The agreement to the front, some of his comments, some of his descriptions, and what he asked for, I just don't think we could. There's, I proposed, and I need the solicitor Reed and Brian to read it, a change to it. If you read it at face value, it reads that we approached them to fix their pond. Which truly isn't the case. We approached them because that pond is going to be used in our PRP. And I think it needs to say this is for PRP purposes. I think the last thing we want is someone to see this agreement that doesn't understand that it was for PRP purposes, not to us to go and start fixing ponds. So his comments kind of precipitated more the need for more technical language in there, and a couple other things he had in there I didn't necessarily.
But you wrote up a proposal that addresses those items.
Yes.
Let me ask you one question. You said the Phase 3 pond would stand on its own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, could we refer to that agreement as part of this, that they'll execute it simultaneously?
It's in there.
Okay.
I did.
I mean, it's a separate.
We did separate them, and he wanted the township to sign a post-construction agreement, but what Mr. Reed, Solicitor Jones drafted it. I believe he was the author of the agreement. I'm not sure how that went back and forth, but the language got in there regarding the pond, its maintenance, and then by signing, he wanted us to sign a post-construction stormwater management agreement, which this access agreement kind of contemplates it. So I think we wouldn't record a post-construction stormwater management agreement for ourselves because this is something we have to put in and maintain. That's what we're offering to them. So
we'll do maintenance of the interior of the pond, and they'll do the basic grass cutting and that around the perimeter.
That's correct. And when we did prepare an exhibit too that just basically showed like area 1 and area 2. Area 1 would be the area that we would maintain, and area 2 would effectively be everything outside of that pond. So as far as maintaining their lawns, their shrubs, their trees, and things of that nature, they'll continue doing that. But in order for the PRP to work properly and be maintained,
needs annual maintenance.
The township has to do that, not and the homeowner association would not do that anyway, so we would be back anyway. So I think some of that technical language needed to be added to make it more clear.
Yeah.
So I have a draft completed that we'll review and get back to them.
So the solicitor and I review the revision you prepared, and then we can mod it. Once we're good with it, we'll send back a reply.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
So basically, I think the difference between the two is the fact that the pond in Phase 3 was constructed under our guidelines.
That's correct.
And the pond in Phase 1 pre-existed our guidelines.
That's correct.
And then they didn't maintain it in any way, shape, or form, and it became a mess.
That's correct. But since it's tributary to that watershed, if we make the improvements in that pond and take the responsibility for the maintenance, the cost will be much, much less than you acquiring the property and actually building a new pond downstream of that.
That's a win-win for both parties, really.
It is a win for them, but it's a substantial win for the township, because if not, you'd have to either acquire it. If you couldn't acquire it along that thread of the stream, you'd have to condemn it. And
Yes.
then we'd have to basically build a dam.
As a matter of curiosity, where does the back pond drain to? It doesn't drain anywhere.
It goes to Brady's
It
Run.
goes Brady's Run.
It goes where?
Brady's Run.
It's a different
So
watershed.
the front goes a 2 mile, the back goes to Brady's Run.
Okay, I think of it as being down in the hollow, and I'm trying to figure it out again. Oh, well.
So there's no action.
It's out there.
All right.
Okay, so we have no action in tonight. Okay, any additional business ed? Ned? No.
That's all I have.
Mr. Reed?
No, sir.
Marge?
No, sir.
Jim? Negative. I don't either. Do you have any? Okay, any other public comment? Yes.
They're tearing out the bridge. Are you guys, did they have to show you any plans or? Okay, because I was looking for a little bit of help. 376 and Dutch Ridge Road, both wash out there. I've lost an acre of property that I can't access. I talked to PennDOT for several years now. I was just wondering if maybe I could get some help with them at least fixing it so I can at least get to the other side. You could lose a semi-truck in it.
Wow.
The washout from where?
From 376 and Dutch Ridge Road. It's so bad that it actually comes down that, they put in that, I used to sled ride down it. It's that concrete swell. And it comes down and actually washed out underneath it. And that lost.
So you haven't seen the construction drawings to see how they address that?
No, and I spoke with someone last year whenever they came, which was my most hopeful of getting it fixed. And I actually walked him down and showed him the engineer. But then it got pushed back another year. I was hoping that maybe somebody could help me with at least fixing my property a little bit just so I can get to the other side.
I'll make some calls and see about getting the drawings.
Okay.
Well, when you say, no, is that, when you say it's your property, is it within the right of way, do you know, or is it out, is that drainage all outside the right of way down there?
It's half and half, I think.
Okay.
It's hard because my property is so,
It's so deep.
yeah, and it zags with the
Yeah.
zigs and zags with the road and Dutch Ridge. So they took more and then gave back and took some. So the way the parcel is, it's actually quite strange.
Okay.
But some of it's on mine that is washed out, and some of it's on theirs that's washed out. So before I had like a little creek, and I remember it 20 years ago. There's a little creek, wasn't that bad, and we could get to the other side. And if anybody remembers, we used to keep cows on it. If I was to put a cow on that now, I'd lose a cow. So, I mean, I talked to them several years of dealing with the state. Now that they're putting in this bridge, I thought maybe they showed you something, or that maybe somehow you can help me reclaim some of my property.
I'm sure we can get access to it.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, anything else? Can I have a motion to ratify the February bill list?
So,
I'll second.
Have first and second, all for signifying aye.
Aye.
So carried. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Have first and second, all for signifying for aye for adjournment.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.